Hi, I'm Julie.
And I'm Caleb. Welcome to Nursing You, the podcast where we redefine nursing in today's healthcare landscape. Join Julie and I as we step outside the box on an unconventional healing journey.
Together, we're diving deep into the heart of nursing, exploring the intricate relationships between caregivers and patients with sincerity and depth.
Our mission is to create an open and collaborative experience where learning is expansive and fun.
From the psychological impacts of nursing to the larger implications on the healthcare system, we're sparking conversations that lead to healing and innovation.
We have serious experience and we won't pull our punches, but we'll also weave in some humor along the way because we all know laughter is often the best medicine.
It is. And we won't shy away from any topic, taboo or not. From violence and drugs to family and love, we're tackling it all.
Our nursing knowledge is our base, but we will be bringing insights from philosophy, religion, science, and art to deepen our understanding of the human experience.
So whether you're a nurse, a healthcare professional, or just someone curious about the world of caregiving, this podcast is for you.
One last thing, a quick disclaimer before we dive in. While we're both registered nurses, nothing we discuss here should be taken as medical advice. Always consult with your doctor or a qualified healthcare provider for any medical concerns you may have. The views expressed here are our own and don't necessarily reflect those of our employers or licensing bodies.
So let's get started on this journey together. Welcome to Nursing You, where every conversation leads to a healthier world.
So Julie, we have 3 episodes in the can. This is our 4th. We've been having a nice conversation just about various different elements of our journey. How do you feel the first 3 episodes have gone?
I think they've gone good. It has caused me to think about things and put them into language that I hadn't before. Even with journaling, really. When you're with another human and you're speaking and the language flows, and that's different than even just writing it.
Sure.
And so this actually has been very healing for me and is giving me opportunities to heal. I should say that. Opening up about ways and things that I haven't thought about allows me to see kind of inward. And that opens the door for just more healing and processing with language, processing with thoughts, trying to put your thoughts together so that they make sense with the intention of someone else resonating with it and being able to recognize their self in our story, yours or mine or both. Because I was on that side lots of times. I mean, when I quit drinking, I listened to so many podcasts just because it was real people talking about their real problems. It wasn't the media. It wasn't commercials. It wasn't sponsored.
Right.
It was just real people talking about their lives openly. And it allowed me to feel that I wasn't alone. And, because when you're going through such a hard time and you feel in such a place that you sometimes don't really know where to turn. And for me, that I kind of became robotic in my life and Groundhog Day-ish because I didn't want to make the wrong decision. I didn't really know what my choices were. But listening to other people talk about their feelings validated what I was feeling. And that allowed me to not feel alone, which then made it kind of feel safe for me to start trying to work some of that out in my mind and knowing that I needed to work some of that out in my mind, that it couldn't just stay where it was. It needed to be processed through the dishwasher and then taken out and put back in the right cabinet.
Right.
I felt like my dishes were a mess, always overflowing. And to start to make some kind of sense of all of the feelings that I had. And
can I throw you a big curveball?
Yeah.
Just listening to you talk about the subjective experience that you're having. It brings me back to something that I've been thinking about for a long, long time. And it will tie back into everything you just said eventually.
Oh, I know it will.
Yeah.
We always bring it back around.
So let me see if I can get the thought right. And none of this that I'm going to say is absolute. It's just my kind of my buddy calls it Caleb's mental workshop.
There you go.
Yeah. I've been running this thought
Yeah.
through my mental workshop for a long time, like 3 years maybe. And the idea is that, you know, the different roles between doctors and nurses are that doctors are coming in. This is the ICU perspective. You know, doctors come in, they spend, you know, a few minutes with the patient, they make their objective analysis, and then they write their objective orders that they view fit for caring for the patient. And then we are left with the task of carrying out those objective orders. But we're there for 12 hours, and the carrying out of those objective orders oftentimes is pretty finite, and there's a lot of time in between where we are dealing with the subjective nature of the patient experience.
Yeah.
And so to kind of just walk you through the whole mental workshop of this idea, you know, in healthcare, I'm really confident that nurses are listed on the budget sheet as an expense, and but we're called providers, and doctors are listed on the income generating side of the revenue sheet of the budget. And so the philosophical perspective that any healthcare administrator necessarily is going to approach that budget sheet is that the doctors are going to be valued higher than the expense. So just philosophically, we cannot be viewed any other way than an expense or a liability to the outgoing flow of cash. And so thinking, you know, recognizing that thought, and then what I've been, you know, and I don't even know if it's possible. It's not possible on my own. I don't think. I think I would need like a team of people that were able to think about things in an abstract form to figure out a way to identify the value of the subjective caregiving that we're taking on and giving. And that if we were able to identify the value in that, then we could potentially charge for that, and that would be a source or a pathway to the other side of the performa or the financial performa. Like, in order for nursing to get to the point where in order for nursing to become healthy, I think that we have to be viewed differently by administrators. That viewing us as, you know, there's a one of the hospitals during COVID, I remember seeing an award, top 100 hospitals in America. And it's a gold leafed, and, you know, it's a placard, and directly next to it was a cartoon of a male nurse with a cape and a female nurse with a cape and their stethoscope or whatever. And it's like, heroes work here. And it's like the thing that should be gold plated and you know, have that formal reverence is these people that are sacrificing literally every part of their lives to take care of others, but they're the ones that are represented as cartoons. And this award that was more than likely purchased. I mean,
well,
like that's how it
know.
works. I mean, we all know that. That if we're going to repair healthcare, it is going to be, you know, it's going to be, nurses have to be elevated, regarded, cared for. You know, like I said, I think you know, we kind of dabble into topics and we weave in and out of them. And, you know, the nurses that are choosing to leave the bedside or choosing to kill themselves or whatever escape that they have, whatever means that they find rest from the caregiving trauma, they're finding it. And that means the patient population is going to be left with a huge, tremendous void, and no one's going to be able to take care of anybody. And that is very concerning.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to explore in that subjective realm.
Yeah.
Which is so difficult because it's subjective.
Right.
How do you can't,
Right. You can't measure it.
You can't measure it.
You can't put a number on it.
Uh-huh.
You can't.
Well, you try. I mean, we got the pain scale,
Well,
which is
everybody
like,
yeah, again,
yeah,
not truly subjective.
Yeah.
You know, or someone's pain level at 4 is completely different than another person's pain level at 4.
Absolutely.
It can be measured, but not referenced really.
Uh-huh.
You know, like you can't, in your mind, you have to, there's so much more than just the pain level at 4 that you look at the patient and decide how you're going to proceed with them.
That gives me kind of an interesting idea. Like, and this is just exploring. This is mental workshop.
Yeah. Mental workshop
moment.
Yeah.
Like, because, when someone is I've been in extreme pain before, where time kind of changes. Like 5 minutes from now doesn't register.
Yeah.
Like maybe measuring pain in somehow in terms of time. Like, are you at 0 seconds?
Yeah. How
like
long can
that's
you wait?
like 10 out of 10,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
interesting.
It's just
well, because I mean, who even came up with that?
Yeah.
0 to 10.
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean?
Right.
It doesn't mean any, it doesn't, the number literally is a reference point and that's it. And my interpretation of a 4 is not the same as someone else's.
Sure.
And I don't know. I just think that speaking of subjectivity, there's also no one way to heal either. So healing is also very subjective. And I think we'll explore a lot of different topics just because we like to talk and we've been able to take a step back from the grind and have time to think about how we feel about lots of different things. And I think our perspective is different than it was when we were
in it.
Mm-hmm. But offering, because some people will like very, start here, A, B, C, and then you move down in like an algorithm type of way. And then some people will just be able to reflect by our words, by hearing our words. And then that will cause them to kind of reflect on their life and, looking to the future of what this podcast can be or what we can offer, because I think it's definitely both our calling to be able to offer. I don't even know if we know what we're going to offer. I think we both have been called to offer whatever it is to help the collective. You could leave it at collective period, but also because we're nurses and we have such an affinity towards other nurses, by helping them. And, I think it's hard to see what that is going to entail and what it all, means, but having a platform to be able and the courage to be vulnerable and talk about how we feel and how things affected us will shed a light, even if it's a tiny flashlight, but it still will. And light, light on the darkness, shining light on the darkness, it only shows what is really there, and will continue, it just continues to spread. And having all of the experiences that we have had individually and, together for a while, it's like we just have to share it. We have to. So whether 5 people watch this podcast or 500,000 people watch this podcast, even if there's 5 people who are like, thank God for you.
Yeah.
You talking about that changed it for me, whatever that change is, because we're not putting people in any particular direction. Leave the bedside, get out of the hospital. It's not that. If it can just open their mind to think in a different direction, So in a way, kind of being teachers of life, and experience of it.
I think that kind of informs the curveball that I threw, just because we're all having subjective experiences. And I think that, what you were talking about initially was like you're trying to make sense of this experience that you have, this subjective experience that you've had, and understanding, like there's like a context of understanding that everything that we've experienced at the bedside, all of the, you know, screaming patients that like our cells have absorbed those sounds, you know, like all of that, like it just gets lost in there. And then on this side, you don't know, like, you don't even know what you're dealing with.
No, you don't even
like,
know it's there.
You don't even,
I mean, unless you understand that concept, you don't know that you're absorbing that. You don't know. And then you wonder why you can't sleep at night, or why you're getting really pissed off at your kids, or why, like, why do you, when you say, I'm not drinking tonight, why do you drink? Why are you doing that? You know, you're just not even aware that that's happening. And, you know, but it is.
It's definitely happening.
There's so much to be absorbed. There's so much emotion and so much energy with all the emotions of the patients. And so, I mean, it is all subjective, all of it. The patient's experience is subjective. The medicines we give can be the same. The treatment that we do can be a protocol, which is the same. It's very objective. It's exact, an algorithm, the way we code a patient, you know, those kind of things. But the subjectiveness is, like, you could picture all the energy coming off of that. And then each individual absorbs that in a different way. And you don't know where you're going to get stuck. You don't know where that energy is going to be stuck. You know, because you don't, I mean, it has to do with so many things, where you came from, how your childhood was, what you're doing now, how many skills were you born with, how, you know, how much awareness do you have? You know, elementary school doesn't teach awareness of ourselves in space, in the now. They just don't.
Not yet.
Oh God, wouldn't that be so great?
It would.
Those teachers who do meditation with kids is,
it's awesome.
It really is. So what do you think about?
Well, I mean, one thing that popped up for me was one of the gifts of all of that, which is healthcare's inclination towards dark humor.
Oh, don't you love it? I don't know if there's a nurse out there who doesn't love that dark humor.
There is nothing like it.
I know.
It is so funny. God, healthcare provides so much humor.
Well, I mean, that's the opposite of suffering. I mean, don't you think?
No, really, we have to do
in
it.
a way.
It's the only way to.
It's a release. It's the laughter. I mean, so many good
just belly
moments.
laughs.
Oh my God.
Crying laughs.
You can laugh with another nurse like no one else.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it is the best. It is. And, you know, people feel shameful about it sometimes.
Sometimes I do.
I usually don't, but I think sometimes they're like, I'm pretty blunt.
Yeah.
And at the bedside, you know, I had a way, and I'm just going to call it like I see it and say things out loud. And some baby nurses, and I could just feel the looks. They were like, oh my God, I'm so uncomfortable.
Yeah, but it's a tool. It's also a tool. Like in critical situations, I know that I've experienced you do it. I've done it. Like that one moment where everybody's kind of quiet in a code or just a critical situation, and you throw that one little dart into the situation, and it just lightens everything.
Everything.
And then it just continues to move forward in a different direction. Like it's kind of like the whole thing is hanging in a balance, and that one joke that's thrown in there just shifts the energy of the whole thing.
It does,
and it goes in a positive direction.
And I mean, I did it for myself, and I did it for others.
Absolutely,
you know, so that they could feel like this is not so serious. Like this is serious. It's so serious, but it's not really that serious, you know. Or even when you're kind of debriefing or what, you know, you're talking about things afterwards, or you know, a nurse would come to me and say, "Well, I had my first death." I'm, you know, and I'm very, you know, listening, but like we can't make it so serious because otherwise you take that down to the soul, and that's not where that belongs. That doesn't. Like, let's process through that, and we got to let that energy go. And laughter for me, integral
absolutely.
for for getting through it. And I didn't really realize, it's not like I was reflecting on that back then. I just wasn't, but it was a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Which I do believe I lost during COVID.
Yeah.
I really did.
As you were saying that, I feel like, we haven't really talked through any of the details of why I left the first time that patient lost. It was so traumatic for me. But I was kind of, as you were talking about that, I was thinking to that situation, and it was just only serious.
Yeah.
There was never any laughter in the room. It was just, oh shit, this is not good.
Yeah.
And it was 12 hours of it. It
Yeah.
started from
the
beginning to the end.
Yeah.
That kind of broke me.
Well, and I feel also too that probably was your time to exit.
I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
It was just my journey.
Yeah.
I had to go.
Yeah.
I had to go. I couldn't stay. Felt betrayed. I felt a lack of confidence in myself. All of it.
Yeah.
It just, like, I had to get out of that hospital.
Well, and I think, so everybody's journey is different and everybody's on a different timeline. And, I guess I would want nurses who are like, what should I do? I mean, I'm feeling away. I don't even know how I feel.
I don't even know what I'm feeling.
Yeah. I don't even
just
know, you will know.
Yeah.
So if you're still getting up and you're still going to work and you're still doing it, that it's just not time. But becoming more aware of this might save you from maybe even ever leaving.
Yeah.
You might be able to work some things out in your own mind to, remain at your job and in a happy place.
In a healthy place.
In a healthy and happy place. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the perspective that we're coming at this from. It's like, how can we help nurses to become more self-aware of their experience and keep them at the bedside, keep them caring for people.
Yeah.
And
Because
not
like you
losing
said,
hope.
Well, who's going
to be there?
Who is it?
Who is it going to be?
I mean, are you going to go to the hospital and you're just going to have a robot?
God.
I know. I mean, it really takes away the whole, like we talked about last week, the whole essence of nursing, of nurses, is the caring part. And if you cannot care for yourself or are not caring for yourself, you will not be able to continue to care for other people.
Right.
It will happen.
Right.
If you don't. And, I think back, like,
that's where it's at.
Yeah. Learning, educating yourself. It's a practice. It's not knowing about self-care. And, because I look back at some of my social media and things that I was doing, even during COVID, part of it, I was in a manager role, and I felt so deeply that I needed to take care of those nurses and make sure that they were taking care of themselves. But it was as if no one could step off the hamster wheel to even get a minute to do it. Me neither.
Yeah.
So here I am putting this information out, and we had resource page and mental health resources and, take care of yourself and go home and take a bath and, all those little things. And it's like, why didn't I didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
I couldn't. It was like you just feel like you're on this hamster wheel that you can't get off of. I don't know how to depict that except for just awareness within. So it's not like, I need to do that, because it did feel like more to do. I didn't have enough time. But it's a decision that you make that you're gonna slow down no matter what. And you have to become comfortable with sitting with yourself in who you are right then and not be afraid of that anymore. I think a lot of us are afraid to really sit quiet because I think we're afraid of what ourselves are going to tell ourselves.
Yeah.
Like,
I think there's a shame component.
Yeah.
Of
And
caregiving.
fear.
Yeah. Well, fear of the shame.
Yeah.
The shame component of, where my hands were.
Yeah.
For, in the last shift.
Yeah.
What I had to do to this person's body to save them or preserve them or whatever. Yeah. I think there's a shame because again, that goes back to the whole idea of the lack of shared experience with community. You go out into your family setting or community setting where people have no context for where your hands have been.
Right.
And there's like, if this person could have seen me 2 hours ago, what would they think of me?
Right.
Like, that I remember having that thought many times, like playing racquetball, like, you know, I'd be, you know, having the camaraderie of the racquetball players and this silence between conversation. I'd just be like, God, these guys have no clue what I do for a living. Like,
and why do you think that was like, do you think other people in other professions feel that way? Like,
the body is so intimate.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that, I mean,
it feels like we should be more revered as a healer rather than, you know, a nurse who's paid hourly, who's on the clock and is told to take her lunch and told when she's not going to work and how many patients they're going to have and what they're going to work with. It's like a total dichotomy of like, you're this healer who is literally hands in another patient and or you know, another person, another human
being,
with their soul, and your eyes are with their eyes at maybe the moment they're dying, or the moment they have to go on the ventilator, or the moment they get off the ventilator, or come out of surgery and wake up, and it's so intimate that it doesn't fit with someone who clocks in and out of a job, and who is an expense and who is expendable, as we've seen many times. And you're not treated as the king and queen that we are. And so it's like your body and your essence wants to heal and be that intimate with that other human being, but it's like you're doing it for free. It's like you're giving it away, because no one really, except for another nurse, knows what you're actually doing. It's like being a king and queen behind the scenes, kind of.
Well, so that's an interesting thing, because I remember I had this guilt, especially when I was on a weekend option. I had a patient that was long format, like 8-9 months. I know we've talked about it, you don't remember, but the things that I did to that person's body, like, it's just like no one else. No, who does that?
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah.
And then I go get in my fancy little sports sedan, and I'm like, that paid for that.
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, because there's an altruism to nursing that, you know, like, I think every nurse is altruistic, and I think that's part of why we're on the expense side. I think that our altruism is used against us.
Yeah.
That staffing ratios are manipulated. Like, someone will be morally inclined to not leave their coworkers in such a shitty situation, excuse my language, that someone will step up and more than, I mean, at least in my experience, my own choices of not leaving my coworkers alone, it was that ethical, altruistic, like, I'm not going to leave them in the trenches by themselves.
Right. Yeah.
But then you realize that the staffing ratios are manipulated.
Yeah.
And that is,
we as the healers should be saying what they should be. We should,
what do you mean?
The staffing ratios. We who are in there should be deciding how many people we need to do the care that we're giving.
Right.
But it's completely opposite than that. You don't get to say. You don't get to decide that you need more that day.
Right.
You have to do it under the constraints of whatever facility you're working at, or what the government says,
or what the budget,
or what the state says. Yeah,
or
whatever it is.
Finance guy that's making the medical decisions.
Yeah. So
it's insane.
So it hurts. It hurts and it cuts, and it makes you jaded.
Jaded.
Yeah. Because it doesn't match up, and our minds cannot make sense of it.
Yeah.
And so you just do it.
Right. That reminds me of something we were talking about, the cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
And what was, we kind of talked through that, like, that the experience, and like so much of the experience of nursing and the internalization of that experience is in contradicting force.
Yeah.
And well, we talked through this. I think it was before or after our last
well,
episode.
I mean, you can only
shot.
be in that place for so long, and then it's going to cause breakdown. If your mind cannot make sense of what it's doing, and your mind and your body and your soul are doing one thing, but you also have to be doing the same. Like it can't exist at the same time, you know? And it does for a while, but I think that is also part of the breakdown of nursing as a career, because
I mean, or even further down, the psyche of the nurse.
Yeah.
When things just don't make sense anymore.
Right.
Like it, well, I mean, that the term I kind of apply to myself is ICU psychosis.
Yeah.
Like the thing that we don't like, and actually, that's an interesting thing to kind of work through, because we typically think of ICU psychosis as being, you know, a patient that's been in the unit for multiple days. They lose orientation to time and space, and like they lose orientation to reality.
I mean, we give them medications to take that away. We take it away from them. You know, like they don't even have the ability to maintain any kind of normal sense of day night and being alive.
Yeah, all orientation is lost.
Yeah, all orientation is lost.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we just continue the cycle by suppressing any cognitive function with, you know, sedatives and drugs, and we just turn you off because you're not behaving. Instead of like figuring out ways. I mean, how do you figure out psychosis? How do you
but I mean, just even the concept of that, I mean, you can apply that to nurses.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like I think I diagnosed myself with ICU psychosis. I lost track of perspective.
Oh my God, me too.
Yeah. Like I think that's why nurses, like ICU nurses in particular, ICU critical care ER nurses are the ones that are taking their own lives. And I think they lose track of reality. They develop ICU psychosis. I really think that I mean that's a mental workshop piece that you know, I don't think we could entirely hash out in one session, but over time we could maybe come up with some differential of understanding what that means for nurses. And that, you know, that could be a very useful tool for managers, for individual nurses to police themselves. And
I mean, there really is so much to explore, and I feel like, I mean, we're just getting our feet fairly wet.
Oh, for sure.
And it feels very expansive, but it feels like just thinking about the future and what we can talk about and develop, and all, you know, I'm just thinking like, oh my God, all the nurses that we could help by putting our effort into this type of thinking and putting it out there on a platform so that other people can have access to
interact and have access.
Yeah.
You just remind me of another thing that I really want to see happen is a nursing think tank. I want to create a nursing think tank.
Yeah.
God, that would be so much fun. How fun would that be?
They pretend that they have that, like, as far as like coming up with a better way, coming up with, you know, like a committee, be on the committee so that we can think about and do things, you know, and get nursing input. Well, that's all bullshit.
Yeah.
It just is. It's not working. You've been doing that since the 70s.
Committees. Oh
I
my
know.
God.
So a think tank is not a committee.
No, like if we did a think tank, like we need to think tank a think tank.
Yeah. We do need to think tank a think tank. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, naming our podcast Nursing You is twofold. I think we've thought and talked about this, that, you know, we're nursing you, you're nursing me, I'm nursing you. And also the whole other side of that would be like a nursing university, like a place that can develop, I don't even want to say education because that sounds weird, but it's ideas. And I don't want to say like processes. It's just words and
it's like we have this aversion to these like catchphrase.
I know, because
like,
I don't want it to be that.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be sponsored by an association.
Uh-huh.
I don't want it to be sponsored by a healthcare system.
Uh-huh.
You know, I don't want it to be sponsored by a university nursing school. You know what I mean? Like I want it to be authentic and genuine, coming from two nurses that were in the field for so long, were very broken, and have learned to start putting the pieces back together. And, you know, I mean, the best inventions come from those who were in the field.
Sure.
You know, the best medicines come from those who wanted better and knew that there was something better.
There's a better way.
Yeah, there is a better way.
Yeah.
And I haven't found it. I haven't found, as far as nursing goes.
Sure.
I just don't really, you know, see much advance in that. It seems very loophole-ish. Like there's ulterior motives for what, you know, systems will talk about building resilience. That's only for them. It's one way. It's selfish. They want you to be resilient so you don't call in sick, so that you feel bad when you take a day off, when you can't work the proper schedule that they want you to, or however many days you're supposed to work. You know what I mean? That to me is just gross. And it's not genuine. It's not authentic. And I think one of the good things about this is that we're not coming from any of that. Right. Like nothing we're doing has any motive, or, I mean, there's really the only thing, what I'm getting out of this is a sense of allowing people to gain awareness about where they are in their life. And just like when I was seeking things that I needed in my toolbox to help me, I knew I needed help. But so you just start looking and you're scouring wherever, podcasts and YouTube and books and classes and all of those kind of things. And, you know, I want this to just be one of those things that offers a lot of knowledge, and that we're just holding this space so that others can feel that. Like I really want it to come off as authentic and genuine, coming from inside of us, you know,
from the heart.
And I think the reason we question sometimes, is anybody going to listen to this? Why did I last so long? Why did it take me so long to figure that out? Why didn't I take care of myself sooner? Those are just unanswered. I mean,
that gets back to the subjective experience that we don't have any tools to process. That is the key. We have, that's the thing to figure out. I think, I really think that's,
that is what sparks the new idea and sparks the new impulses, and our brain to think like, oh, you know, it could be that, or, you know, inspiration. I think it sparks inspiration when we're like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
We're so amateur. You know, it's there.
Yeah.
That it really is like.
Well, it is interesting. I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, just the, like, listening to myself, like I'm so self-critical, and listening to myself talk in the earlier episodes. It's like, come on, buddy, land the plane. Let's go. Get to your point, man. But there's like this honest reflection of who I am. Just like, oh, that's I do that. I have that mannerism. I have
right. Because we just don't take the time to really look at ourselves. We're so busy looking at everybody else, our families, our children, our marriages, our, friendships, and the patients, and everything. There's so many other things to look at besides really just looking at ourselves. Yeah. And I mean, that's healing. Yeah. Being able to, self-reflect. So if you're not doing anything else, if you can just write a paragraph about the way you're feeling like right now, and just don't do anything with it. Just reflect on it. Just
Right.
think about it. We have to get to know ourselves, who we really are and what we really want and why we're here.
I think, it makes me think of the kind of when I left nursing, I isolated myself in an unhealthy way.
Yeah.
But I had to have that time to process, like, even though it was, it was ill-informed and completely reckless on my part. There was a part of me that had to be alone.
Yeah.
I had to be alone, and the solitude of just being by myself and not giving. I think I talked about that in one of the earlier episodes, kind of the selfishness of that self-care, that everything else had to fall away in order for me to completely break so that I could put myself back together. And, that solitude piece is like, I'm listening to you and that's what it's taking me to, that place of solitude. Like the way you described, all of the work, the relationships, all of the different pieces of life that you were portraying in that idea, all of them require giving of yourself. And it was just like, there's like, when do you have time for just being with yourself?
Right. Well, and we're not taught that.
No,
we're not taught that. We're taught that you're successful if the more things you can do and the more things you can hold on your plate, the more successful you are. The more businesses you have, the more money you make, the more hours you put in.
Yeah.
It's not really, if you're like, no, I work about 15 hours a week. And, oh, you do? Well, what do you do? You have so where do you work actually? What are you actually doing? Like, no, it's like, oh no, I'm a manager. I have 3 units. I do that. I'm on call 24 hours an hour. What? Like, that's what is like, I am so proud of you. Not, I'm so proud of you for taking the time that you need. What manager has ever said that to you?
Right.
I'm so proud of you for calling in and taking that day because you literally coded 3 people yesterday.
Right.
It was like, okay, well, you've called in 3 times
we got
in 3
3
months.
more codes coming tomorrow.
Well, right. Or now you're in trouble. So now you're
right,
you have to write you up because I have to, because the hospital says I have to.
Right,
so now you're on like a written plan.
Right.
I mean, it's just not. It's not allowed. It's just looked at as a negative thing.
Sure.
And so it's not comfortable to do. And it's actually not comfortable to do.
Right.
Because we're not taught.
It's not comfortable to do initially.
No.
But then once you get used to it, it's like
you have to have it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where that's where my thoughts, mature, within my mind. But then there's like that, for me, I found that those thoughts that I run through the mental workshop, as I process those, there is a definitive limitation to my ability to really see through all the problems. And it's only when I come back to community that I share them, and then they get polished. Yeah. Like they can only take a rough form in my mental workshop. Yeah. It's only when I have someone that is able to see it from a perspective that I don't have that it becomes something valuable. Well, that made me think of like community gardens. So like it takes the community. You can have one person tend the garden, but how much more will the garden flourish if you have a community tending to the garden? And Absolutely. So, finding your people who can help you tend is huge, and is something that I really now am just learning. I've been married. I did, when I quit drinking, I isolated a lot within my own family and home. And so that's necessary. No one should ever feel shame about needing that. I didn't cook. I didn't do any laundry. And then I had to work through the shame of all that, because that not performing my tasks at a mother. I mean, it was impactful. Absolutely. Yeah. But now coming out of that and being very comfortable with who I am and how I feel and need, allowing others to
tend to me and that I can talk with and allow in my circle. I just didn't know that something could feel so like flourishing about it, like nourishing about it. And I don't know which should come first. They might happen simultaneously for some people. Some people, and I might have been one of those, can, flourish in a social setting. And that's fine. But like, do you really know who you are in the social setting? Because I could flourish in a social setting.
Yeah.
But that was only this layer. So nothing down here was being worked on. So I had to literally take it down. And I know you did too. To bare minimum, to bare bones, and work some of that out, almost like an archaeologist would. You really have to like take it all the way down to as low as you can go within and start uncovering some of those old bones. And then you're shocked at like what you now see, this whole structure of something that you never knew was there, because we it was so covered up for me. It's just a hard skill. But even if you can do a small amount of that for a small amount of time, even starting 5 minutes in the morning. So you asked me who would be a dream guest if we had guests on our podcast. And I was thinking I would love to hear someone's take on like a nurse's psyche. Oh, like someone not in healthcare, like not a storyteller, but more like someone who could,
like a psychoanalyst,
kind of like someone who could evaluate a little bit of what we're saying, or just their knowledge of nursing and caregivers and, what
caregiving trauma.
Yeah. Someone who was real versed in that and how, so I'm sure we could get a lot of things out of that.
Yeah.
To be able to understand better, because even being fresh out of it, and it's still very fresh. And I think we understand a lot and have a whole different perspective, kind of being on the other side of that. We are so new to our healing, even years. I mean, I still think it's just
even with
new.
Years under the belt,
Yeah.
It's still like, I mean, I think that's part of the human experience. Maybe we never, like, there is no goal. You're
right.
Like,
I don't believe it's an endpoint either.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always a journey, because as I have found, healing this opens you up to now this. And so now you can recognize and heal this, and then opens you up to this, and then you recognize and heal this. So I literally think it's a journey of healing.
Kind of reminds me of like the video game Mario Brothers or Super Mario, where they are running and then they jump on top of this tunnel and they go down into this underworld where they explore, like, and they get their rewards and they come out their little coins, they jump up and down,
and it never ends.
And then they come back up and they're in the real world again and they're running, and then and then they get to the end where they they are doing the flagpole thing, and you're going on to the next level. Yeah, it does. It's like it does feel like that. I mean, I guess there is an end when when there's an end.
But I think while we're still in this meat sack, it is a journey always. And
I mean, meat sack is such a base term.
I mean, it's just a bag of bones.
It is.
But interesting book that you're reading about the organs and how they are grounding our body
spiritually.
Yeah.
Grounding our spirit to our body.
There it is. Yeah. And even, you can look at it if you look at it from just a nursing, what our knowledge is that, the heart beats and it's electric, and the brain functions and that's electric. Like there's electricity there. And so that's energy. And
our nervous system is entirely electric.
It's all electric. Which is so interesting. And so, there are other ways to heal those types of systems
Mm-hmm.
beyond just medications.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. We were talking through that we're responding to all of the maladaptive ways that the body is operating, and Western medicine is not really looking at how to optimize the positives. It's really only looking at the negatives. I mean, we're really, really great at emergencies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, give us emergencies. We got this.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to optimizing health, we're not really focused on that in any way.
Yeah.
But I do think that is the future
Mm-hmm.
of medicine, like looking at sound waves and
Mm-hmm.
waveforms,
Mm-hmm.
biological waveforms.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that is the future of medicine.
Yeah. So it would also be interesting to have a guest that would be able to, that maybe wasn't in healthcare, that knew a lot about frequency and energy healing, and relate that back to nursing.
Uh-huh.
Because I feel like that's a whole untouched realm.
Oh yeah.
For, if you want to put it, caring for our bodies.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the trick is, everybody's heard, during COVID, the healthcare workers mocking the essential oil community.
Uh-huh.
I've got the essential oil of amiodarone for your AFib.
Yeah. That's hilarious. But there's something to it. I mean, the olfactory nerve and the whole way it responds to your body. I mean, there's something about smells.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely believe that.
And I mean, it was just so dividing, with the treatments that just glared during COVID, that some of those holistic things that aren't in a medicine book were brought because nobody knew there was no answer. It was brand new. So everybody was kind of throwing everything at it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I wish I would have been more open to some of that. I didn't have the
alternative therapies. Yeah.
I didn't.
I mean, there is a balance to be found with like the idea of sound waves. Like there has to be instead of going entirely on subjective and objective paths, there's like the subjective path, like rejecting the path of Western medicine that claims absolute truth or claims to be an authority on truth as a result of the objective data that we collect,
mm-hmm.
which is, very finite and, because it's so myopic. It's looking at this one thing, this one element of this one thing, and they're deep diving into this thing. And yes, you identify an objective pathway to this form of truth, but it's not a comprehensive
mm-hmm.
truth. And, to entirely disregard the anecdotal experience,
mm-hmm.
subjective experience of people who benefit from these alternative therapies is also, I think to go fully on either path is unwise.
Yeah.
And I think that we are like, that is the divide that we're kind of standing on, is people are moving in the direction of believing science as almost a religious truth, and medicine being the full realization of that. And then on the other side, rejecting it because it's saying we have the truth,
mm-hmm.
It's the cohorting of foods
mm-hmm.
and medicines and all these things where clearly we're having a health crisis in America. Yeah. And so to say that divide is growing, and if we don't find a way to balance the subjective and anecdotal experience of these people who are looking for alternatives because they recognize the falsehood of the claim of absolute truth of medicine, that's a tricky dance to tango with.
But very interesting to talk about, and I think more discussion is needed
mm-hmm.
around that.
I wish I could have said that more articulately.
Mm-hmm. Try it again.
It feels like society is divided between the objective path that medicine takes and the subjective path that rejects the absolutism of Western medicine, that these people on this side are saying, you're claiming truth and it's obviously not true. Right. They're recognizing something subjective in the claim and saying, you're forcing this on me. So I'm going this other path and rejecting what, there is wisdom in Western medicine. It's not like we've come this far and we don't know things.
Right.
We know things.
Yeah. But like you're saying, it's not absolute.
It's not absolute. No. And the way forward is, I think, navigating this path of, finding objective truth in waveforms, in sound waves, in all the diverse ways that our nervous system is receiving information that is informing health. Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty broad statement, but I think if we dialed in on what that means, that our entire being is responding to information that it's receiving, and waveforms are at every level of science. So studying that from applying it to health and optimization of health, not just responding to illness. Right. That's where we have to go if we're going to find a way out of the mess that we're in.
So, I mean, this podcast, we've talked about a lot of things. I think it's the vision for future podcasts. I think we could make 10 podcasts, of some of the subjects that we've talked about today. We talked a little bit about the vision, what we want to see, why we're here. I think it's pretty clear that what we want out of this, is to provide insight into lots of things that nurses probably don't ever think about. To get them in a better place than they're currently in, even if it's just a very small, better place. To
just think differently about the situation they're in. Yeah. Maybe they don't have to dig out of such a deep hole.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we could prevent even just a little bit of that, that's, I think, part of why we're doing this. Yeah.
Agreed. It's been fun.
Oh yeah.
I'm excited to see where it goes.
Oh, me too.
It's it
is fun because it's like we're not on a, we don't have it's not cookie cutter.
No.
And there's not an algorithm.
No.
And there's not a protocol.
Right.
It's very.
It's just us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just talking.
I love it.
Just talking through it. And it's fun.
It is fun. It is fun.
So we'll see.
See you on the next pod. On the other side. Yeah.
See you on the other side. Yeah.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode.
Remember, the conversation doesn't end here.
Keep the dialogue going by connecting with us on social media posted in the links below, or by visiting our website, www.nursingupod.org.
Together, let's continue to redefine nursing and shape a brighter future for those we care for. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep nurturing those connections.
And don't forget to be kind to yourself.